Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. It is a weekly chat about socially conscious topics impacting the culture. I'd like to extend my gratitude in you listening to this podcast. It means everything to me, and I hope it is clear that this subject matter is so important to me. I care about our people, our future, and making a positive change in this nation. Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. I am your host, Jen. Welcome and Happy New Year, guys. Before we get into the news stories, I did want to take a brief moment and acknowledge our last year in review episode where we had Gene A. White Jr. join on. He did an awesome job, so kudos and salute to Gene. We appreciate you for stopping through Woke by Accident podcast to participate and go over the stories with us. Looking forward to stopping by your podcast. Everybody, please check out Gene's podcast. It is called Hijack My Life, and it has all the details and all the things about self-development, imposter syndrome, and when you feel like you're not enough, and just all that inspirational information that we need to keep it going for 2023. So shout out to Gene and all the guests. Shout out to all the guests that we've had in 2022. You guys are awesome. Please, go back in the episodes and check out some of the guys and ladies who have joined us throughout the year, and we appreciate you all so much. And just looking forward to bringing more great episodes and guests for you, but this will be a solo episode, audio episode today. So there are 3 stories that I want to bring to your attention today. And I was thinking about the stories that we covered on the year in review episode. One of the more prominent stories were some of the mass shootings that we had in the year. Well, just in January alone, we haven't even got into like half of the month. According to the Gun Violence Archive, we've already had about 41 shootings. 3 of those have been school shootings already in January 2023. So there's 3 incidents that I wanted to bring to your attention just in light of those shocking details. On that episode, we talked about there have been nearly 600 shootings, and that, such a shocking number, and just not even to be halfway through the month and we already have almost 50 shootings. It's just very shocking. It seems like we're going into a trend, or continuing a trend of violence, especially with young people, and it's just really disheartening. But I want us to be aware of what's going on, and so we will talk about these 3 stories surrounding young people and violence. And so the first one that I wanted to bring to your attention is about a 6-year-old child that brought a handgun to school. And so this story comes to you from Virginia, according to CNN. The mother of the 6-year-old boy, who this is where he got the gun from, he brought the gun to school and allegedly opened fire in the classroom at the Rich Neck Elementary School and wounded his teacher, sending her to the hospital. And so there's a possibility, they're saying now, that the mother could possibly be charged concerning this firearm. Now, a lot of the information has not been released. Like, we don't know the ethnicity or what have you of the child in question. The teacher, the first grade teacher, was Abigail Zerner, who was 25 years old. Her injuries are described as life-threatening. However, she is in stable condition at this time. A GoFundMe page has been organized by the sister of the victim. If people would like to reach out, that information is on CNN. And, just thoughts about, a 6-year-old bringing a firearm into class. And it's the details of the story is that this was not an accident. It was intentional, that he, displayed the firearm, pointed it at her, and fired one round, as it was described in the article. There was no physical fight or struggle noted in the details of the incident. So just very shocking, so young to, just wonder, was this child shown how to use the weapon? Where did this behavior come from? A few episodes ago, we talked about a 12-year-old that had or fatally wounded his mother, and it was not an accident. And so, is it video games, or is it just, mental health issues that have not been diagnosed and not received the proper attention? But it seems like something is going on with our young people, because we're seeing even younger and younger 6-year-old. That story just really impacted me. I spent some time in the classroom recently and worked with 5 and 6-year-olds quite a bit, and so it's just really troubling and disheartening to hear that went on. And my heart goes out to the teacher, and prayers for her family that she pulls through in this particular case. Now, the next two stories are about two 13-year-olds who lost their lives to citizens in their respective cities. Now, this first one actually happened back in October of 2022. Tryezz Reed. And so this story comes to you from Columbus, Ohio. Tryezz Reed, who was 13, was shot and killed on October 12th at the Wedgewood Apartments in Hilltop. Craig Butler, who was 36, was arrested at the time within 48 hours of Reed's death and charged with murder. However, those charges were dismissed a few days later, and they have not been refiled. The family is seeking justice for Reed, according to local activists. They have made claims that the alleged shooter, Craig Butler, is affiliated with hate groups, and they have called for a federal investigation of the case. So according to the details of the case, is that it's likely thought that the charges were dropped because Butler is stating that it was self-defense. Now, as far as the incident, they said that 36-year-old Craig Butler stopped his truck, got out, and shot the 13-year-old Tryezz Reed in the back multiple times, and got back in his truck and drove away. Many have speculated that the motivation for shooting Reed stemmed from racial hate, without providing evidence to support that particular claim. And so there's another article I came across on ABC that spoke to the self-defense law in Ohio. So apparently Butler, who was arrested days after the shooting and charged with the murder, and then those charges were dropped, he claimed self-defense in his shooting. So there was no record that Tryezz Reed had a weapon in the encounter, but in Ohio, the self-defense law has changed in the regard that the legal part of the burden is changed. So previously, if a shooter said, I shot someone in self-defense, they had to prove it was self-defense. But now, according to this change outlined in ABC article, now that the law has changed, it changes the burden and it shifts to the prosecution. And then this self-defense rule is a byproduct of the stand your ground laws, and it's controversial because it protects the shooter as opposed to the victim. So with that is, thought of why the charges were dropped because of the self-defense claim. And the police report, just want to put that out there, that the police report in this particular case never stated that Tryezz Reed was in possession of a firearm. So if it was some sort of incident, Butler was the only one that had a firearm, not the 13-year-old. So it's just, looking at the picture of the child, he's a small child, and this is, a big grown man. And it's just, I don't see how that's self-defense, especially if he's the only one armed with a firearm. So, we will, keep an eye on this story to see if there will be justice, because the family is seeking justice for Tryezz Reed in this particular case in Columbus, Ohio. This next story that I mentioned also concerns a 13-year-old black boy, comes from DC, Northeast DC, and it is about Karan Blake. Now, the 13-year-old Karan Blake was shot and killed in Northeast DC on January 7th by a local homeowner who believed that the boy was breaking into vehicles in the neighborhood. And the shooting took place around 4 a.m. in the 1000 block of Quincy Street. Now, the shooter, who has not been identified, shot the boy several times, killing him after claiming that he had broke into the multiple cars on this particular street. When the police arrived on the scene, they found this homeowner who had shot him performing CPR on the young child. According to the article from news1.com, authorities have been tight-lipped about the incident, and there was no indication that the victim was armed, and the firearm used in the shooting was legally registered by the homeowner, who is cooperating with authorities. Now, the family of Karan Blake is very distraught and have expressed that they are seeking justice for the deceased. Now, I did find an article with NBC News. Now, this article gave a little more details, where they haven't released the name of the homeowner who was responsible for the shooting. It did state that he was an adult male and that he was black. And this is according to the police chief, Robert Conti. The homeowner has retained legal counsel. And then the detectives are gathering information, and they'll present the case to the U.S. Attorney's Office for possible charges. So it goes on to say that a grand jury will determine if a crime occurred based on the facts and not mere speculation. I guess it looked good that he's cooperating. He did try to revive the victim. Noted that he was doing CPR at the time they came on the scene. However, it is a sad case. A 13-year-old boy's life is gone, and while he may have been engaging in a crime, it is still sad, a sad moment for his family. And it kind of opens up the question. I saw a tweet in reference to the story that said property is not greater than life. Quran should be alive today. And so, I mean, while homeowners, and, I'm a homeowner also, you want to protect your, you have the right to protect your home or your castle. Castle doctrine speaks to these types of things. If it's a child, engaging in this activity, does that change your perspective or thoughts? I would definitely not want to be responsible for taking out a child, whether they were trying to, break in my car, not just, conscious wise in me personally. However, I know my spouse would probably say the opposite. And I, respect that, but it's a interesting thought that, I would like to pose for people to consider. When children engage in these types of behaviors, we talked about a 6-year-old student shooting a first grade teacher who's 25 years old, just starting her career and starting her life. And, she's fighting for her life right now because of a 6-year-old with anger issues or whatever the case is. So, these moments of violent and, behaviors, whether it's breaking into a car, obviously something's going on with this 13-year-old if he's out here breaking in people's cars at 4:00 in the morning, so yeah, that definitely gives us something to think about as we roll into the new year with these, just a few examples of violence with our young people on both sides. So yeah, definitely want you guys to think about that, and we'll definitely have more stories for you guys. We appreciate you for listening, and take care. At this time, we're going to go ahead and conclude the episode. We greatly appreciate you listening. We invite you to follow us on social media. On Instagram, it is Woke by Accident Podcast. On Twitter, it is Woke by. On Facebook, it is Woke by Accident Podcast. We also have the new website up, www.wokebyaccident.net. Please check us out. And also follow us on all of your favorite streaming platforms. And please leave a review and share feedback. You can also reach out by Gmail, wokebyaccident@gmail.com. And every time you listen, we appreciate it so much. Thank you for listening, and take care.